All right, so you're thinking about selling on Amazon in Europe, or you're currently selling there and you're thinking about going into another marketplace within either the European Union or the United Kingdom, and you're just having trouble figuring out, my gosh, there really are a lot of variables with the fulfillment fees. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining how the fulfillment fees work, what cross-border means, pan-European and European fulfillment network, all these different terms they keep using, which can make it sometimes hard to figure out, what am I actually going to pay for a fulfillment fee for, if Amazon ships an order to a customer from, one of their fulfillment centers in Europe. So let's walk through how that works. So just so you can kind of see here, let me go ahead and share my screen. So if you're on this page here, which I'll link to down below, where you can see, basically they kind of go into some light detail, I guess we could say, about how their fulfillment fees work. And so sometimes it can be a little daunting with all these different terminologies here. But if you scroll down here, you can see that there's basically for sell on Amazon.co.uk, fulfill from inventory in the UK. So if you're selling in the UK now post Brexit, pretty much that's the way it's going to work, as we're recording this in March of 2021. And then there was where you could sell to customers in other marketplaces outside of the UK and use your UK inventory. Now, basically the border is closed off between mainland Europe, we'll call the European Union, and the UK, because the UK has left the European Union. So this doesn't really apply anymore the way it used to. And then this is if you're in the Pan-European program, which I have a video which explains more about what the Pan-European program is. Now, just to go through, like, how does all this work? So there is a rate card. So if you're looking on this, it was these downloadable rate cards. So probably the best one to use for a lot of folks is going to be this one here, which is the UK rate card. So if you scroll down here, it's pretty much showing your fees in Europe. Now this is, as I'm looking at this is April 2020, is this particular set of fees. As we all know, the fees are subject to change, and sometimes they add in different variables. So just keep in mind, depending on when you're watching this, they could have a different one. So just look and see what the updated rate card is. But I would say for the most part, the best thing to do is scroll down to this section right here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to make it easier to see. And you're like, wow, that's a lot of stuff here. And so, one of the things or two of the things I think you really got to keep out for is, on this side, you see everything is in kilograms, and then they've got packaging weights and things like that to figure out different tiers. And then also this is all in centimeters. So you got to use, if you're not sure what your product is in metric, because like, for example, you're selling in the US and all of your goods are in customary, like inches, feet, or whatever the case is, or pounds, but you need to convert it to grams or kilograms. Always remember, I think back to, elementary school when I learned that in a kilogram means 1,000 grams. So 1,000 grams into a kilogram, or half a kilogram, 0.5 of a kilogram is 500 grams. So things like that. So 1 pound is a little less than half a kilogram. So one little thing to keep in mind. And then it's about 0.4 on the inches to centimeters. So 1 centimeter is about 0.4 of an inch, so a little less than a half of an inch. And you can put in, if you just Google inch to cm, like if you're, you'd probably want to go the other way around. But if you went from, let's say, inch to cm, which they've got it going the other way around. So let's put in, if you had something that's 15 inches, it's 38 centimeters. And so you'd want to know that for if you're trying to figure out the rates, because the first thing you want to do is figure out, is it, no matter what marketplace you're looking in, is it standard or oversized? And just because it's maybe on the border of being standard or oversized in the US doesn't mean it's going to be the same. And also too, you got to keep in mind that how they calculate the outgoing weight is going to have a factor in this. So first thing we're going to do is, once we figured out what our our product's dimensions are in metric, if you don't already have that, what you're going to want to do is come down here and figure out like, okay, does it meet for basically longest, middle size, shortest size? Is it, if it's more than one of those, so if like the middle one is going to be 24 centimeters, then now you're looking at a different tier. So you probably wouldn't be able to be in large envelopes. So you probably have to be in standard parcel. So depending on your product, just figure out where you're going to be. I think if you're not 100% sure, it's always good to estimate up in either a tier or in a weight. So maybe once now we've got to figure out the tier we're in. So let's just say you're in standard parcel. So basically they're going to get a box, not an envelope. Then you're going to figure out the weight. And so let's say your product weighs a pound. Let's say 1.2 pounds. And so the product itself is 1.2 pounds. So that's 544 grams. Now, we can't just take 544 grams. We would have to think, okay, 544 grams. So we'd add on 100 grams. So that's 644 grams total. So the 544 plus 100. And so it's going to be in this here. We can't just take on face value without first adding in the packaging weight. Because remember, there's a weight to the box and whatever filler they potentially put into it. So they always add something on. And in Europe, that's how they're going to calculate it. And if you're in Canada, and maybe you've already done this with metric, just keep in mind the outgoing packaging weights might be slightly different. So you might be in a slightly different tier. So just know that. So figure out which tier you're going to be in. So let's just say our product's going to be in the less than a kilogram tier. So if we are selling local fulfillment, so local fulfillment means I'm selling it to customers within that country, and I'm storing in the country, and I'm selling to customers within the country. So for example, if you're importing into the UK, storing into the UK, pretty much anymore, there's no more cross-border fulfillment from the UK. So you can kind of, for the most part, count this out. I've had a handful of sales this year that are cross-border fulfillment. They're sold outside of the UK. But for the most part, this is what the price is going to be for local inventory. So that's what they mean by domestic FBA. And then pan-European is if you turned it on so that you were basically always paying the local price. But one of the things is to keep in mind, if you want to store inventory in a particular country, and this is where it gets kind of confusing here. So hopefully we're not going too deep down a rabbit hole here, but pan-European is where you're turning on. So Amazon could move your products anywhere they want. So if they can move their products, and so maybe you import it into, let's say, Germany, but then they can move it around to any of the other countries. UK is no longer part of that program. But if they're able to move it around freely within the European Union, if you store goods in Spain and you sell to someone in Italy, you're going to most likely owe the Spanish government, or at least have Spanish. Some of the rules are going to change on this. So check with your whoever's preparing your VAT. But you would basically pay whatever the local inventory fee is. And so this gets kind of confusing. So what I want to do to keep this pretty simple is I don't recommend most folks, especially to start off with, do pan-European. It's something you can grow into and you'll understand these concepts because you have been living it. But if you're relatively new to Europe, I would just do local fulfillment. So basically, you're going to start, let's say, in the UK, and you're storing goods in the UK, you're shipping to the UK. So it's this local fulfillment. So nothing leaves the country. So, let's say they have a warehouse in Southampton, and they ship to a customer in London. Well, it all is within the United Kingdom. So you're going to pay this amount. Now, if you're in, let's say, Germany, they do have basically, if you come down here, the fine print is this fee reflects an additional charge of 0.46 pounds or 0.5 euros. And so they add on a little bit extra because you're not in one of these other programs where you're storing elsewhere. And you might be saying, well, oh, to save the 50 cents, is it worth it? I wouldn't say. I would caution start with a program where you're only in Germany if you're going to go into Germany, because if you store goods in Poland and you store goods in Czech Republic, which is what this column is saying here, yes, you're going to save a little bit on the fulfillment fees. However, you now have VAT responsibilities in those countries. So you're having to pay for someone to do VAT. In most cases, in my experience, because I did this for a while, it was monthly. And so I was sending the equivalent of probably $11 in whatever the currency is called in Poland, whatever they call it in Czech. It's not even euros. So I was having to convert things into their local currency to pay what was, just pennies, because it seemed like there was only a fraction of my sales were being shipped from those countries. So it's pretty much based on where you're shipped from. So Amazon's giving you a little bit of a break because of the pain in the tush that you're having to go through for having inventory stored in those countries. So I would not recommend starting off, if you're going to go into Germany, just store goods in Germany. Now, if you're storing goods in France, this would be your local fulfillment rate. So anything in these columns here is you store goods in that country and you ship to people in that country. Now, there's what's called the European Fulfillment Network, where you are selling to good customers outside of, let's say you're holding goods in Germany and you're selling to customers in Italy, then you would need to come back to here and you could use this one. And this one that gets a little bit more complex because it is in German. But basically, the same kind of thing applies here. So it's basically if you were using, let's say, the less than a kilogram. So if someone is outside of Germany, this is how much you would pay. Whereas, so you are paying more, because if you're within Germany, the customer buys on Amazon.de, which is Germany, they're paying 372 in euros, where it's 723. Oh, it just happens to be the numbers just switched around. But they're basically paying, or you're going to be paying about 3.5 euros more to ship it to the customer in, let's say, Italy, because this is what the cross-border fee is. Because in Europe, you can, as long as you're keeping your goods in Italy, or sorry, in, let's say, Germany, and you're sending it to somebody in Italy because your goods were stored in Germany, you can still use your, basically your German VAT number. So you'd have to be registered for VAT in Germany. This gets real complex real quick. So whenever in doubt, talk to someone. But the key of it is, more than anything, just to kind of give some more additional context, is there are resources to figure all this out. And so one of the things that I think can sometimes frustrate folks when they look at this stuff is like, wow, this is crazy. I don't even want to waste my time with there. Well, guess what happens? Some of your competition is saying, it's not worth my time. I don't want to waste my time figuring this stuff out. It's too much. And so for those who do decide, I'm going to figure this stuff out, they get additional sales. So if you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I'd like the additional sales, maybe it is a little bit of confusing trying to figure out your fulfillment fees, but you could use that chart. So, and try to keep it into very simple buckets. So if you're shipping into the UK and you're sending to customers in the UK, and that's what you're going to start off with, which is what I would recommend to folks when they first go to Europe, or if you're shipping to or shipping to, you're importing into Germany to hold stock in Germany, to sell to customers in Germany. You don't have to worry about cross borders or whatever. And then maybe on down the road, you add on Italy or something like that using your German fulfillment. So the products you have stored there. So just real quick. So in case you are saying to yourself, I know there's other variables involved in selling internationally. You can always go to internationalchecklist.com. I've got together a checklist which will walk you through step by step how you can figure out some of the hoops to jump through. Because like I was saying, some of your competition isn't going to do it. But what happens is the people that cast a wider net catch more fish. That means more sales. And so if you do the things others won't do, you will get the results others won't get. So I would love to know your questions in the comments down below. If you found this video to be helpful, please consider subscribing to this channel, as well as they say, smashing that like button, and helps the algorithm know that this is something that's helpful. So I wish you the best in your e-commerce journey. Take care.